So this is my vlog for chapter 2 and 3. So it begins out with, due to the illness, the professor had to resign from his post, but that didn't stop his studies. He actually went home and continued writing. That did cause him illness such as severe headaches and throwing up. If I'm looking over here, I'm reading what I wrote down for it. In 1882, it jumped to, he ordered what was known as the best of that time. It was a typewriter. It could type up to 800 characters a minute, which was insane for that time. And it got to the point that he mastered the layout of the keyboard so well that he could type without opening his eyes, and that solved his headache, I guess. He actually was so impressed by the workings of that typewriter, he wrote about it in almost like a sonnet or poem. I don't know what form he put it in. At the time, the newspaper actually caught wind of it and wrote about it. They said that the professor had improved in his health being and was writing again. And once that was published, Nietzsche actually noticed a change in his writing, saying that it was more tight and more forceful, that every one of his words packed more of a punch. A quote that was said, and briefly quoted, was, "We are only as good as the pen and paper," suggesting that because he upgraded to the typewriter, his writing improved with it, which is kind of cool, thinking that we went from pen and paper or papyrus from the olden times, and now we're typing on computers. So then it jumps all the way to a psychologist, sorry for the pronunciation, named Sigmund Freud, who, when I learned in psychology, is a whack job. He's very outside the box. He actually thought that, or he theorized that inside our brain, they were made up of cells, and in between those cells there were gaps, and he wanted to know what happened in between those gaps. He was so criticized by this theory that he was forced into a private practice. Well, later on, once more powerful microscopes came to play, his theory was correct. In between our two cells there's a synapse, which is now called, and that's where one nerve travels across. So that's all I have for chapter 3. For chapter 4, it was kind of short. On the audio version, it was only 6 minutes. So I can't see that being more than a couple, maybe 5 pages. But it begins off with Aristotle, who was a philosopher, and he believed that the brain stopped us from overheating. He thought that was its sole function. Didn't think that it was anything that was reactive. He didn't think that we thought with it or anything processed through it. He thought that our lungs and our heart sent up heat, and that heat heated the blood, and our brain was a regulator that cooled the blood and sent it back down. And that kind of came from the theory that heat rises, that he saw on the earth that steam would rise and it would cool down when it rained. And it said it's easy to laugh at it, but then you actually think about it, that's not a crazy thing to think about in that time, because they didn't have any of the tools that we have. They had very limited resources, and he took what he found from the earth and tried to correlate it back to the human body. And you gotta think about it, we feel our heartbeat, like it said, we feel our lungs inhaling and exhaling, you feel your fingers and all their functions. You don't feel your brain. You can't feel it throbbing, you didn't get a headache and those suck, but you don't actually feel it, you just feel pain here. And that's kind of cool to think about, because you relate to it, you can squeeze your fingers, toes, but you can't squeeze your brain. And that's actually fascinating to me, thinking about that now, because I never thought of it. Lastly, 2,000 years later, the brain was compared to a hydraulic machine, and this is pretty wacky. If I heard it correctly, they said that the blood was transported from the heart to the brain, and then it was transferred into animal spirits. pretty sure I don't have any animal spirits inside me. But that's all I took away from the 2 chapters, and that's it. Thank you.